All right. All right, we're recording.
Wonderful. Let's get this happy hour started.
Hey, welcome, guys. Steve and Noah.
Hi, Noah. Hi, Steve.
Yeah, hi, guys.
I guess I should change my name so people know who I am.
Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Steve. How are you today?
Hey, how are you?
Real good.
What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking what I ordered for the tasting.
Yay!
Let's see, ready to roll.
So, who
How
wants
do you
to
eat?
share how to pronounce this? I know that it's spelled phonetically on the back.
Audax, right? Just Audax, I think.
I don't know. If you look at the back of the bottle, I don't know if it's pronounced that. That's funny. Can we take a moment to appreciate the beauty of this bottle? I think it's stunning, but it shows every single fingerprint on it.
Yeah, you know what?
House.
I know. You want to turn your camera on?
Well, whatever the case is, it's I've already cracked it open, and it's been open for about 2 hours, and I'm drinking it right now, and it's pretty damn amazing.
Mine's been open for about an hour, and it was good right out of the bottle, I thought.
Yeah.
Like,
Steve, are you drinking yours yet, or are you still waiting to open?
you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. You can unmute. It's going to be a small group
Yeah,
tonight.
feel free to unmute everyone and just
Yeah.
share your thoughts.
Yeah. So, Steve, are you have you cracked this one open yet?
Yep. Haven't tasted it though.
Oh, well, there's this is pretty informal tonight, so dig in.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let me know what you think too. That was pretty cool.
I think it's
Two of us here.
phenom.
There you go. So you see, two brothers. Chris
Who's with
Weber,
you there?
Steve Weber. I'm the handsome one.
Are
I'm
you
the
guys
freeloader.
cooking
When
tonight?
when he buys, I take the less handsome role.
Where are you
When
guys
he
located?
buys, that's funny. Are you guys generally a fan of Calla Lily?
No, actually not, but we live in Marin County in Nevada, which is right next to Sonoma. So right next to Napa. So we do go often, but I've not been and visited this winery.
Wow.
Wow.
Marin
I've
is
never
one
been
of
to the
my
West Coast.
Marin is one of my favorite places to be. Whenever we go to California, I love going to Weir Woods.
Oh, yeah.
I love it's one of my favorite places. I just love the smell.
Yep.
I could die there. Just that smell of the Weir Woods and the overlook on the beach. One of our favorite, most tranquil places. Just to stand, just kind of
Nice.
take a moment. Yeah, beautiful area. So, how's the weather treating you right about now? I mean, is it still kind of hot where you guys are?
We just had a little rainstorm come through the last 2 days, poured rain, so very unusual.
Yeah.
But it'll be like 85 degrees in 2 days.
Yeah, we're over here on the East Coast. I'm in Pennsylvania, Maggie's in New Jersey, and it's basically about fall time. It's because we're turning into autumn right about now. Perfect time for wines like these.
Ed's about to join us as well,
Nice.
which is great. Ooh, and Shelly
All right.
is here.
Shelly, nice. Welcome. Hey, Ed. Hey, Shelly. Glad you could make it. All right, great.
Hello. How are you?
I'm
Hi.
fine, thank you. Of course, when I turned it on, it said, you need to update. your
Update.
I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Could the timing be better?
It's literally the
Yeah.
story of my life in a digital world.
That's pretty much every other day. So just by force of habit, every time I open up Zoom, I update it now, just because
Yeah.
it's always the case. Well, Shelly you're the director of sales for Calla Lily, right?
I am. It sounds like a big title, but we're a very, very tiny winery.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was, before we got online, and today I was doing my research, and you guys only did like 2,400 bottles of this wine that we're drinking right now, correct?
That would be about right.
Yeah. So, like, if you want to get an idea of the scale of these Napa Valley operations, I was looking into some of this stuff today, and Napa Valley is almost, I think it's like 82% family owned. So a lot of people have this impression that Napa Valley is a big place, but it's actually relatively small in the wine world. And I think statistically speaking, it only produces roughly about 4% of all of California's wine. So it's a lot smaller and a lot more boutique than people understand. And yeah, it only produces about 4% of all of California's wines. And most of these wineries are small boutique family owned wineries that are producing under 10,000 cases a year, like you guys, correct?
Um, that's correct. I mean, our total production is generally under 2,000 cases.
Wow.
And Audax is the 16 Audax today, we did 200 cases, and those are 6-bottle cases. So actually about 1,200 bottles.
It's beautiful wine. Do you
Yeah,
have it in
yeah.
front of you?
You know, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and guess what? I'm in California, so it's 5 o'clock. I need
That's
this
exactly
today.
why we make these 8 p.m. Eastern time, so we can have the West Coast
Yeah.
folk join too for a real happy hour.
Well, it worked out perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you. And Shelly, I'm assuming you're located, are you living in Napa or you just work there when you're with Calla? Or are you,
No, I've lived in Napa for a number of years. I've watched it go through all the changes, you know, from when downtown was very sleepy and now it's vibrant and happening. I'm walking distance to downtown, which is great. And the winery, which is in Polk Valley, it's about a 40-minute drive, 40-minute drive, because you have to go up through Angwin and then it's on the eastern hills of Howell Mountain.
you have to go over the
But it's a
vodka?
very pretty drive,
I can
unless it's
imagine.
harvest.
And
And
Shelly,
then,
we have
Yeah.
a small group with us tonight. There may be some more people who jump in. This is pretty informal.
Okay.
But Steve, who you can probably see on your screen right now, is in Marin County, so he's not too far from you.
oh, great.
Yeah.
Pretty close. We'll have to
I
come,
love Sweetwater.
yeah. We'll have to come visit the winery someday.
No, we're generally not open to the public, even though the winery has a tasting room. It's just that Pope Valley is so remote, even though it's one of the first areas that was developed. Just you don't get the traffic up there. And so there are a lot of vineyards, a lot of major wineries, you know, right off of 29 or Silverado Trail have vineyards there, but no facilities. And so it's just kind of hard to justify, but we always make exceptions and I'm always happy to take you there. So I'll give you my contact info.
That's very interesting.
I remember years ago, my wife and I were on the Silverado Trail and we got a private visit with Chapelette at the time. One of my
Oh,
favorite
yeah.
ones. Yeah. I know that they were, when there were forest fires a couple of years ago, they were severely affected. Didn't the entire winery burn down for the Chapelette?
That was Chapellet. Sorry, I moved because I was getting too much sun in the background. Not complaining, but
I was gonna say it must be nice.
it's like the perfect day after we had much needed rain on Sunday. Today was gorgeous with big puffy clouds and maybe a little more coming our way. But no, Chapellet, they were very proactive and, you know, doing a lot of things around their facility. I don't think they actually had any fire on their property. It was very close though, because a friend of mine owns a vineyard above them, which
Mhm.
is Sage Canyon.
Yeah.
And that lightning fire, which was sadly in August of 2020, one of 2 big fires, started right near their property, and they had terrible losses. I mean, they just had a vineyard; they didn't have a winery, but yeah, pretty devastating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things I get asked quite often when we're talking about California wines. And I don't think people really have a sense as to, where the fires are located. They're usually all up and down the coast. But I don't think that the northern coast was affected that much this year. I think it was more central, wasn't it?
Which fire? Are you
I know
talking
I know there are a lot of fires all the time, but this year in particular, I think this year in particular, it was
Well,
more central coast,
the
right?
fire that's happening right now is up in
Clear Lake.
it's near Forest Hill, which isn't that far from Auburn. And I don't know what the containment is on it right now, but it's not really wine country. It's not too far though from El Dorado County or Sierra Nevada, the Sierra foothills. But
Right.
we never saw any smoke here from that.
Is that something you've ever had to contend with at the winery?
In 2020, Howell Mountain was pretty badly ravaged. And as I said, we're on the eastern slopes.
Mhm.
So at the top of our vineyard, because our elevation, we're about 800 feet and it kind of comes down, you could actually see flames at the top, but it did not burn any of our vineyards. Of course, it didn't help out with
The
vintage. So no 2020, as a lot of wineries chose not to make it 2020, unless they were, Chardonnay or Pinot Noir producers where the harvest is much earlier.
I was actually in Oregon earlier this year, and we were in the Willamette, and they had fires up there too. They served us. Who was it? Was it Waltz? One of the wineries actually decided to make wine that year, and they served us the 2020. You could actually taste the smoke on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm surprised because that's a bold decision. A lot of wineries decided just not to make a vintage that year, but they decided to go ahead and it. I didn't find it to be overbearing, but you could definitely taste it on the wine.
I wonder if like that'll be the norm in a few years, like smoke being like a key, like aroma or flavor. Does that make it like better to pair
I
with
hope
food if
not.
it's smoky?
I hope
No,
not.
I agree, but I'm wondering if as
Hey, what's up,
things
Stub? Jason. My friend Jason's here too. Good to see you, man. Jason
Hi,
Stubblefield.
Jason.
Greetings from London.
Oh, awesome.
Oh,
wow,
yeah,
it's
you know what?
probably
Here I am thinking that you're still in Virginia or still down south, and I forgot you're in London.
Yes. Yeah, I've been a Londoner for just over 9 months now. So yeah.
Wow,
that's
that's
amazing.
really cool.
Where are you?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Where in London are you?
Near Battersea.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so glad you could join us. Thanks. It's that's quite a stretch, man. So yeah.
I was
What
actually
is it?
finishing up a little short pour of bourbon, and I'm like, I have some wine left. I'm gonna jump on and say hi. Yeah.
What are you
Cool.
drinking?
Yeah, what are you
I-
pouring?
I have a Milady Chianti that I purchased actually last week to cook with and have with the food. Yeah, so have a little bit left. So I figured I'd join and say hello to whoever showed up.
Cool. Yeah, well, it's really nice to have you. And tonight, some of us, the majority of us, I think, are drinking a really, really nice Napa Valley Howell Mountain Cabernet. This is called Audax, and it's from Calla Lily.
It's called Audax, which
Okay.
actually it's not Howell Mountain. We're Pope Valley, which is
Oh, I'm sorry.
an actual AVA, but we're on the eastern slopes of Howell Mountain, so close enough. Yes,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a little bit cooler there. Really nice. The elevation helps. This vineyard is really gorgeous. I was going to try to do a background with the vineyard shot, but because of the delay of the Zoom update, I couldn't figure out how to do that. So
This
I
is,
can show
by
you.
the way, for everybody who's just jumping in, this is Shelly Eichner, and she's director of sales over at Calla Lily. But it's a very small operation, and I'm sure you wear many hats over there too. So I hope I'm not doing you any disservice by just calling you the director of sales. I know you probably do a lot more.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We're a very small team, and we help each other out, whatever needs to be done.
Well, here, why don't we do this real quick? And
Okay.
Shelly, you can probably help speak to this. I'm going to share my screen, and I've got a couple of visuals that I stole from your website, and
Okay.
also a map too, just to get an idea of the area that we're talking about. So I'm going to share my screen.
Perfect. Let me.
You can see this? Yes.
See.
Okay. Cool. So here's the West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously for
Oh, it's
point
still
of reference,
opening, Mark.
what's that?
There we
I'm
go.
sorry, Maggie.
It was still opening, but it's loaded.
Oh, okay. So you have a little bit of a delay there.
It was opening, but it's loaded now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like I have a little bit of an unstable connection, so things might be a little wonky. I apologize for that. So yeah, so for reference anyway, most of you know the West Coast, but here's San Francisco, San Pablo Bay, and of course, Sonoma Valley over here, and then Napa Valley right here. And for the winemakers and for the wine industry, what makes this area so conducive to growing grapes and what makes it so important and wonderful is that you have these cool breezes that come off of the San Pablo Bay and work their way through the valley. So Sonoma Valley here, Napa Valley here. So you get that very famous fog in the morning, the cool fog that comes in. You have like 50 degrees and it burns off somewhere around noontime, and then you get somewhere from 85 to 95 degrees a day, usually, which is great for ripe.
Except for last week.
Oh, why? What was happening last week?
Oh, we had a huge heat wave that lasted about 7 days, where we saw some temperatures of 110, 115. It was miserable,
Oh,
but the vines kind of shut down, and it's I know that some friends that have vineyards over in Coombsville, it never gets that cold. I mean, it never gets that hot in Coombsville, and their sugars were jumping to like 26 bricks, and they weren't ready to pick yet.
so are they
But
picking early this year then?
some have,
Yeah.
I haven't gotten feedback from everybody, but just what I've read through Napa Valley Vintners, we've been picking. I mean, it doesn't take very long to pick our vineyard. Our vineyard manager lives on property. We have a small team, and bring it in, temperature controlled, keep it cool, cold soak.
So are
And
you harvesting? When are you going to harvest this year, do you think?
oh, we are right now.
You're in the
We-
process of,
I just flew back from out of town yesterday, and so we're probably already finished
wow. And that's Cabernet that you're picking? Wow.
early.
Yeah, it's really early. Um, I know you do. I noticed that you did a Pinot, but you probably outsourced that, right? You're getting that from a different region.
We made one vintage of Pinot from a lovely Carneros vineyard, actually owned by the Truchards.
Oh,
And Kelly Diani, who's our assistant winemaker, her husband's the winemaker at Truchard. So we were able to make a little bit, but as much as I would like to continue with it, because of where we're located and our focus is Cabernet and we're a state and we
hmm
grow, Malbec, Petit Verdot. We even grow some Petit Syrah, but we don't produce when we sell that. So we sell some of our fruit. Merlot, we have some old uh, AXR1 Cabernet that goes into the Audax. And what am I missing? A little bit of Malbec. But
yeah,
I figured,
yeah. I was looking at the blend. It's essentially sort of like a Meritage, like almost like a Bordeaux blend that you're
well,
using,
it changes from year to year. I mean, this particular one is 88% Cabernet.
right? And for those people who are not familiar with the way wines get labeled in the state of California, you only have to have 75% of the grape in the bottle in order to label it that. So when it says Cabernet Sauvignon on the front of the bottle, in some cases it might only be 75%, but in your case it's 88%. Um,
This year, yes, with 5% Merlot, 5% Cabernet Franc, and 2% Petit Verdot, all from our property.
yeah, that's beautiful too. I mean, it's so layered and nuanced. And for those of you who know, this is sort of Cabernet Sauvignon hails from Bordeaux originally, and this is the way they did it in Bordeaux for thousands of years. And it was a way to sort of hedge their bets because the weather was so variable every year, season to season. You don't always use the same blend every year because some years your Merlot may not do as well. Some years your Cabernet may be a little bit more austere. Some years your Petit Verdot may not necessarily be online. So you adjust the blend every year based on taste and based on a house blend in order to get the end result that you need. So yeah, this is very standard in the wine industry, and this is very standard in the old school winemaking too. So you can taste it. It's I appreciate that very complex and layered aspect of this wine. It's not one dimensional. There's so much there. Like every time you take a sip of it, it's changing and you're getting something different out of it.
Exactly, and probably will even be better tomorrow. I have such great respect and fondness for Kerry Gott, who's our winemaker and managing partner. He's fourth generation. He's been making wine for I want to say over 40 years. And
I stole some pictures here. Can you see that?
that's Carrie in the center. And Kelly is our assistant winemaker. She's on the right, and she's been making wine for a long time as well. And Mr. Maltonato, who is our vineyard manager, and he's been living on that property for a long time. I don't know when that photograph was taken, but looks like fall.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like it. A lot of the media photos that you had on here are sort of when it looks like after harvest when
Yeah.
the leaves are starting to turn.
And you can see how how it's terraced and sloped. It's just such a beautiful vineyard.
And these vineyards
Yeah.
are about 800 feet above sea level, from what I understand.
At the top, it's about 800 feet, yes, and then it's gently slopes down. And most of that was planted, I think, in around 1979. Except down at the bottom in front of the winery, that's where we have some of the XR1, and I'm not sure what year that was planted. But
So were these vines there when you came in?
yes, yes. So the story is that the winery used to be owned by a name of Budge Brown, and I think it was called the Budge Brown Winery. And he built the winery only in 2011. And I think he lived in Bakersfield or somewhere in the Central Valley, and he used to commute by plane. He flew his own plane. And, sadly, one day he crashed the plane and died. And so his family didn't want to have anything to do with the winery. And so they came in and basically closed it down. And this was like in 2012. Everything was brand spanking new, and locked the key and walked away. And then they put it on the sale, put it on the market.
Wow.
So Carrie happened to find the property and was working with two young gentlemen that were big wine lovers and were looking to pursue their dream in having a winery. And they had looked in Bordeaux because one had lived in Great Britain. He had gone to Cambridge and was part of the wine society there. So he was a Bordeaux and Burgundy fan. And his friend was a hedge fund manager in Wall Street, and he was a Napa cab guy. And so they looked at both, and I think they had a certain budget that they wanted to work on, so they weren't going to be buying Joseph Phelps or anything big in Lower Valley. But they found the property, and Carrie was just so impressed with the state of the vineyard, and then the fact that it was brand new. It was just built, and so they bought it, and I think it was in 2013. And so we've not been making wine there for a whole long time. There was some wine, I think, in barrel that we may have finished, but I never really had anything to do with that. So really, it was a 2013 that was our first vintage. And been working with Wines Till Sold Out since it's been 4 years, since 2018. And I think they had some of the 13 vintage and came back and wanted some more. So they had really good response. And I had a bottle of the 13 about 2 weeks ago. It was just delicious. So these wines will age.
Yes, that's very clear based on what we're tasting right now. And that's a cool story too. So thank you for sharing that with us. I want to zoom in before I close the map here and we just go back to chatting. I just want to zoom in a little bit, kind of give people the lay of the land. So you see, this is the Napa Valley here. It used to be a river valley in ancient times. So this is, well, we're going to do a little trivia in a little bit. So I'm not going to give away all the details here. But like we were saying, the breezes come through from the south in the San Pablo Bay. So the bottom area, like around where Los Carneros is a little cooler. And as you get up towards Calistoga, it gets a little bit warmer. But you guys are located up here, Pope Valley, where this red marker is. So you're kind of on the other side of the Vaca Mountains. And you're in this sort of like little soup bowl almost, this little like
Right.
indent. How does this work? How does this change the climate and sort of the terroir in the region as opposed to the rest of the Napa Valley? How is this different?
Well, I mean, you would think that it being on the eastern slopes, it would be a lot hotter. And of course, certainly as you go further east, it does. But I think between the altitude and the fog, because we do get that fog in there, the temperature is pretty moderate. I was gonna look at some of my notes on here.
It looks a little, based on this picture anyway, it looks like it's a little bit more arid. I mean, do you get a lot of rainfall in that area?
You know, I don't, well, we don't have a normal anymore in terms of average
Yeah.
rainfall. You'd like to say, oh, we get 20 inches or 30 inches, but you know,
Yeah, fair
Cleveland, we
point.
got 10 inches. There's two really nice reservoirs on the property, and actually they're in pretty good shape, where I've seen a lot that are, you know, so dried up. We're actually east of Calistoga. I didn't see Calistoga. Oh, there's Calistoga right on there. Yeah.
Right
So
here,
just a
yeah.
little bit east of Calistoga. But I
Yeah,
don't know what,
Calistoga is usually known for a little bit more for whites because it's a little warmer up there, right?
you see some Cabernet being produced up there too.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's not exclusive, but the northern part of Napa is typically more for known for its white grapes.
So
Can you touch on, not to just jump in, but can you touch on a little bit about the aging of the wine, the type of oak you use, how long, how much is new, et cetera?
Sure. Well, I'll talk about this vintage specifically since that's what we're dealing with today. And this one spent, we use all French oak, number one, and we have a few different coopers that we work with, but it spent actually 27 months in oak, and 50% of those barrels were new, and 50% were 1 to 2 year old. And then we don't use, well, after 3 years, we may use it for our ultimate red Cabernet, but this is more of our kind of special selection. And so
So
we would have been,
you're doing 27 months of oak on this, from what I understand.
Yes.
Is that, wow.
and yet it doesn't, you know, you don't feel like you're chewing on a 2x4. It's really, I think, integrated very nicely.
And it's only 50%. So something people don't understand is that you don't just put the wine in a barrel and let it sit there for 2 years. In some cases, you can, in some places do, but in most cases, wineries will do sort of like a blend, like a regimen, and they'll use like half of it. So this is 27 months in 50% new French oak. And then the
Right.
others are a little bit older, so they're not getting as much oak on it. And then at the end,
Exactly.
when fermentation and aging are done, then they do sort of like a house blend. Usually there's, you know, like trials, like tasting, like blending trials, I guess. I don't know if you do those.
Constantly.
Yeah.
They're always looking at each individual barrel and, you know, kind of picking out the favorites and like, obviously the Cabernet Franc is fermented separately. We don't co-ferment our varieties. And,
Okay.
you know, then they're in the lab and kind of, we get to sit down and get the wine thief out and pull and like, oh yeah, this is a really good one. And, you know, kind of set those aside, not to take anything away from our other Cabernet, our Ultimate Red, which is also very good too. We just, you know, great vineyard.
Yes. Something else that I feel maybe owes a slight explanation is that in the old world, in certain parts of France, Italy, what they used to do, what they call field blends. So they would actually grow all the different grapes that went into the final wine in the same
Right.
vineyard together. So there would be cases like if your wine was made of 50% Cabernet Sauvignon and 50% Merlot, or 40% Merlot, 10% Cabernet Franc, you would have that exact same ratio of grapes out in the wine in the vineyard, so that it was already set and ready to go. And every year
Right.
you grow that, you pick that, it all goes into one bin together, gets crushed and fermented together, and the wine is already blended. That's not the way they do it in much of the New World, in the modern world. In the New World, especially California, they ferment each wine separately, and then they come essentially into a lab. It's not very romantic, but this is the way that most of it is done. So they go into a laboratory or just into a tasting room, and they do what they're called blending trials, where you take each single grape and you put them together and blend them until you get the right blend, and then you make the final decision to blend them all together in that ratio, which is pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
I like field blends too. I've had a number of them, but
Yeah, there's just a lot more inconsistency in the field blends from year to year. So, for wineries that are looking to make a more consistent product, very important when you're, selling wine to people in the real world, when people are looking for a consistency in your product year after year, that you do these blending trials every year and make sure that they have some sort of consistency to them so that the
Right.
public, yeah. So it's all part of the nature of doing business in wine. But you guys nailed it with this one. I think this is beautiful. Steve, what do you think? You're drinking the wine now at this point. Are you sort of like a savvy Cabernet drinker? Are you new to wine? You don't look like you're new to wine.
So, we're not new to wine, and I'm a little spoiled living in Marin. I also am like a national sales manager for a company, which means I get to spend other people's money when I entertain. So all that adds up to drinking a lot of good wine at restaurants without having to pay for it, and also a little bit of a lack of knowledge, like in describing what I like. I'll tell you, I love it, I like it, but when you get into the, like, I'm sure Mark, you could say all the nuances of what you're tasting. I'm not really great at that. I have been very fortunate to walk and travel and visit a lot of Italian wineries that specialize in a super Tuscan wine. But I still love a Napa Cap. I mean, the bigger, the bolder, big, heavy Napa Cap, as long as it finishes the right way. That's my favorite red wine.
Okay,
we
well,
pass
cool.
the muster.
Oh, of course. And this
Isn't it
is
nice?
it past the muster.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
Well, I love it because
Fantastic.
it's got that roundness, and Cabernet can sometimes be so tannic, and the purpose of adding a little bit of Merlot there, it's that iron fist and the velvet glove and help soften
Yeah.
it. But I think the wine is going to age very well if there's any around. But
Mark, you're gonna have to find more on WTSO for us. They were-
Well, yeah, that would be Maggie's job. Maggie, get to work.
Still sold out, man. Sorry.
Yeah. I couldn't
Well, you
even
know
get-
what?
Ed's gonna fight you for the last few bottles.
I'm gonna
that we-
fight you. I'm gonna fight you for the last bottle because I couldn't even get it, Mark.
Well, you know what? I think somebody gave me a link. There's a limited amount left, but I think there were actually a few bottles. I got a link from
oh, good.
somebody. Yeah. So I'll
They're
put it
always
up.
coming back to me, and I'm going, well, wait a minute, I don't have any for the winery. But
No.
I do have some new vintages that'll be coming out, so we'll keep the
And-
pipeline filled at some point.
Of
Looking
course.
forward to that.
The 17
Maggie,
is
since you're
actually
off
very
mute.
nice. 18 is going to be really nice. And
Yeah, I heard
18
18 was 18 was
should be
almost
awesome.
a near perfect year.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I heard 18, well, at least for Sonoma. I don't know how it was for Napa, but 18 was almost a near perfect year for Sonoma.
It was. And actually, I have not had the 18 since it's been bottled. I've only had it out of barrel. But the 16 vintage was actually a really good vintage too. We had
Yep.
Considered almost a gift from Mother Nature. Ample rainfall, no, extreme heat waves or cold fronts. There was a little bit, earlier on in the year, but
Right.
bud break happened when it was supposed to. And very much the way that 18 was. So I've been really happy with the 16s.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy around, climate change. This is something, Jason, you could probably speak to over in London and England right now. Jason also works in the wine industry as well, too. So he's had,
How do you do?
yeah, he's had quite a bit of experience doing what I do, and he's also been.
Are you sure,
I
Jason?
didn't mean to laugh so loud.
Are you sure? Are you sure he's not an arms dealer? He might.
I can assure you I'm not an arms dealer. No, not at all.
Well, he is a Marine, right?
That I will, yes, that I will
Yes.
forever attest to. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And were you in Virginia, or where were you? DC area when you were living here?
Yeah, I lived in Northern Virginia, the DC area, until moving here in December to London.
Yeah. So Jason did a lot of similar things as to what I did. He appeared on local news and TV a lot,
Mhm.
sort of like the wine specialist, that kind of guy. So yeah, he knows his stuff too. So, but he's living in London right now. He can attest to kind of like what is going on with climate change right now. So it's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's brought places like the south of England online for sparkling wine and made them sort of a premier region. But at the same time, well, also beneficial, I should say, is it's making the seasons and the harvests more consistent year after year too. So while it is kind of affecting a lot of areas with more disease and more hail and invariable weather, certain places like the south of France are enjoying more consistent weather and more stellar vintages year after year. We were just doing Brunello a couple of weeks ago. We were tasting Brunello, and Brunello had also a stellar vintage in 2016 too. And they're saying year after year, Brunellos are starting to produce consistently year after year some of the best they've ever seen. So there are checks and balances. There's benefits and not and detriments to having climate change. But for those who are interested, would you like me to give my personal tasting note for this wine?
I would
Yeah.
love it.
Okay, cool.
Yes, please.
All right. I've been drinking it for half an hour now too, so I'm not coming into this fresh, but off the top of my head, this is where I'm going with it. So on the nose, strong plum, prune, and cedar. Cedar is probably coming from the oak, 27 months of oak, and this is 50% new French oak. So you're going to get French oak tends to give off a lot more spice, like baking spice, vanilla, and cedar oftentimes. So I think this is coming from the French. You're using French oak barrels, correct, Shelly?
100%.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting. I think that plum or prune-ish kind of flavor, that aroma is probably coming from either the Petit Verdot or the Merlot. Usually I find that Petit Verdot does that. But there's only like 2% Petit Verdot in there, so that would be really surprising. Of course, you know, the telltale cassis, black currant, red currant that you get from the Cabernet Sauvignon, very sort of like a pungent and spicy note. And then the alcohol is 14.4%, so it's kind of lifting up out of the glass a little bit. So it's there's almost this volatile tactile sensation that you get where it almost makes your nose hairs tingle a little bit. Even when I you know, although I try to trim my nose hairs as often as possible, I got enough of them that I can still feel them kind of like wiggling in the breeze. All right. Very round, really full bodied. The tannins are what we would call soft, integrated, and slightly chalky. And that chalky tannin, that sort of like velvety tannin, comes from Merlot. So the Merlot is kind of one of the reasons why the winemakers blend Cabernet with Merlot, is because Cabernet on its own can be very austere and very sharp, and the tannins can usually be a little bit harsh. So oftentimes they'll put that Merlot in there to kind of soften things down a little bit. And I always kind of think about either buttercream icing or like a red velvet cupcake. That sensation you get, that silky sensation when you bite into a red velvet cupcake with the icing, the butter or cream icing on it, is sort of the same tactile sensation that you get from the tannins on Merlot, which was is a good indication of what this would pair with. And then of course you have like this real soft, round mid palate with the real strong cassis in there. There's a slight pepperiness, that methoxypyrazine that's coming from the Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's sort of like a little bit of a peppery kind of thing going on. There's that velvety center coming from the Merlot. And then let me go back because I want to make sure I get this right, but the acids are usually pretty high on a wine like this.
I'm also curious, is 14.4% high alcohol for a Cabernet Sauvignon?
No,
Not
that's
really.
about
Not
right.
anymore, you know,
No.
things have changed over the last 20 years when, I mean, I remember the days when, you know, 13.5, 13.6.
Yeah, I
And
mean, these days you can get 17 in some places. The acids are nice and balanced on it too. This is or helping to balance the wine out. This is one of the things that's very, very characteristic of West Coast, especially California wines, because you have that diurnal swing in weather, you have that cold morning, that cold night, and that really hot day. You get those real wide swings in temperature. What that's doing to the grapes is allowing them to ripen during the day. So they're reaching phenolic ripeness, which is all the flavor compounds in there, and the sugar compound, the sugar content is really like starting to boost. And then when it gets cold at night, you know, you're going down to 55 degrees in most cases on a typical California night. It's turning the metabolism of the grapevine off. Most grapevines, I think, under 55 degrees, they stop metabolizing sugars and carbohydrates. So they stop ripening. So you get this day of ripening, and then they just kind of like almost like a switch get flipped off, and they stop ripening at night. And what that helps do is retain the acids in the wine, so you have that nice crispness, that juiciness to it that makes your mouth water when you're drinking it too.
Exactly.
Really long finish. The finish is ending on a lot of vanilla for me, and also some spice too, a little bit of like nutmeg or cinnamon in there. So that would be my tasting note. I don't know if you agree with that or not. Does anybody else have any feedback or input? Do they disagree?
And what would you pair with it?
Well, you know, Cabernet is classic because it's very tannic wine. It's classic for pairing with proteins. The first go-to for everybody is always red meat or grilled meat or steaks or something like that. But you can also go with a high protein cheese too. So like a hard cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano. It's great with blue cheese and things that have a little bit of like a bite to them too. Gorgonzola as well, Roquefort. And if you're not eating meats, then you could do something like a cassoulet, like a vegetarian cassoulet, like something with beans and legumes in it, so lots of proteins. And even sometimes when I cook and do pairings for people, I use, what is it? Nutritional yeast. I don't know if anybody's eating vegan foods here or if they're eating vegan dishes, but nutritional yeast is, it's a yeast product that tastes very cheesy. So if you don't eat cheese and you're vegan, you can use nutritional yeast and it gives you sort of the same flavor too. Oftentimes I'll make sort of like almost like a Tuscan bean paste. So I'll take white cannellini beans and I'll crush them with some olive oil, salt and pepper, rosemary, and I'll throw some nutritional yeast in there. And I'll spread that on crusty bread. You can have that with something like this. Any thoughts or suggestions, or does that spark any ideas for anybody? Things you would pair with it?
Well, my COVID thing, instead of cleaning the garage, was cooking. I've been cooking for a long time, but I decided to get into sous vide cooking. And so I was always challenging myself, cooking for a neighbor, a friend of mine, and trying to make things that I would normally only order in a restaurant. So, you know, after I got through the sous vide steaks and chicken and pork tenderloin and pork chops and everything, my one dish that I made, which I love with this wine, is a sous vide duck breast,
Oh,
and getting that really nice crust by scoring the fat before you sous vide and then putting it in a cold pan. But it was coming up with a sauce to go with it. And I mean, for me, a nice duck breast can almost, you know, rivals a steak in some ways. It's meaty.
yeah,
And I did a blackberry sauce.
yeah.
But I used beef broth with it, so it was more savory than sweet, and then added some, you know, some rosemary and a few different spices, you know, just try to pick it up. So that was my, and it's so easy. It was, I'm Googling and I'm up in 3 in the morning, you know, trying to figure out what's the perfect sauce to do with the duck breast now that I got the recipe for that. And so that was my kind of proud moment.
Duck in general is really hard to cook unless you're savvy in the kitchen. You can ruin a duck breast in a couple of minutes flat. I've done it more often than I've gotten it right. But yeah, I've never done sous vide before, so that's interesting.
Oh, I went down the rabbit hole. I have 2 of them now. One for
And
my vegetables at higher temperatures and one for my proteins at lower temperatures or longer cooks. But
I know.
it's pretty incredible.
Do you
I
do
had
it too,
never
Maggie?
made duck breast before, but I was in the Fatted Calf, which is one of my favorite spots in Napa, and they have, you know, incredible butcher there, and they carried the Liberty out of Petaluma, the Liberty duck breast, and I looked at that and I went, "Yep, that's my new challenge." So
You
been
and you
about
can
5
get
times since.
a crispy skin with sous vide.
Well, no, okay, so the whole thing about sous vide is, you're cooking under vacuum. It's almost like poaching, except that
Mhm.
it's sealed. And so with sous vide, you're cooking for tenderness and for length of time, so you achieve pasteurization. But the key is that it doesn't have any Maillard process, so you have to sear. The sear is
So do you
what's
sear
really
afterwards?
right.
Okay, gotcha.
But
I've been hesitant to embrace the whole sous vide movement until so many famous barbecue chefs and with their, stick burner smokers and how they save the meat, they rest the meat in sous vide, and they'll do it for 20 hours. I mean, a good brisket takes 20 hours anyway. And then if they're not serving it for the next 20 hours, they're going to leave it at 140 in the sous vide. So I don't have one yet, but I'm interested.
oh, go for it. You love it. In fact, that was one of my other challenges was barbecue ribs. And so I found, again, through Google, somebody, it was a chef out of Texas, I think from Austin, and it had a recipe, and it was for 48-hour sous vide barbecue ribs. And so just him talking about it and just said, if you've ever been someplace and you said, God, how did they do that? He says, chances are it's sous vide. And so you cook it for 8 hours at 140 to achieve pasteurization, and then you do another 32 hours at 130. And he said, you don't want to have your ribs fall off the bone, but you want to be able to chew them to the bone. And so the thing about them, it requires patience and time and a container large enough, because last time I did it for like 16 people, and I ended up using a beer cooler. But when they're done, you just put them in a pan, put the sauce that you want on it, and throw it under the broiler for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or, you can use your grill if you want, but if you don't want to make a mess, the oven worked perfectly. And I mean, people were going, I think these are the best ribs I've ever had. And it was just so simple.
Well, I know a lot of hunters are using it now for game meats too, because things like venison really tough to get tender. So I know a lot of hunters and game hunters. As a matter of fact, I think there's a guy in our group who joins us regularly. He wrote a book about using wild game. It's
Oh,
called
really?
Changing the Wild Game, and he joins us regularly. Yeah, he's got some great recipes too. So I can imagine sous vide would probably work for a lot of those meats. These anybody have any feedback? Or I know that not everybody here has the wines, but for those of you who are drinking them right now or do have them, or if you just have any questions in general, feel free to jump in. Small
I'll
group
just
tonight.
jump in quick. I do have a couple questions. Love the wine, and not an expert, but my scale is I kind of like it. I really like it. I love it. So this is up there with I love it. But I have two questions. So this is a small group, so pardon if I'm just asking too many. Ed, WTSO wine expert. What does that mean? Ed, are you just a big fan? Are you with WTSO?
No, I am the wine expert at WTSO. So any day you want to shoot a message over to me or email me or ask me a question on a specific wine, or maybe you're looking for a specific wine for an event. I get people emailing me every day about, hey, I'm looking for some wines for a wedding, or I'm looking for wines for a dinner. I'm picking wines out. I'm custom casing, putting a case together for people, custom cases for people. So
Nice.
that's what I do every day.
Awesome, thank you. And
So
then
Ed has a really deep background and knowledge about wine too. He and I have crossed paths in the past. We've worked together with different companies before and prior to this, and yeah, Ed knows his stuff too. So
my next question is for Maggie. So I obviously love the wine we're drinking tonight, but for a long time, my go-to every night, my favorite wine at the right price point was Encantado and Encantado Reserve, and I haven't seen it available lately. Are we going to have any Encantado available soon?
So I am not responsible for inventory at all, but I can look, and Ed can help you as well. Like whenever you email wines@wtso.com, we have our entire inventory at our fingertips and we can look it up for you. I will look it up right now, but if it's been a while.
It's been a while, and that's the.
Oh, actually, you know what? I remember Encantado. So I feel like the last time we ran it.
Well, Maggie, while you're looking, why don't I do a little trivia?
Okay. sounds good.
We have an interesting scenario here tonight because 3 out of the 6 of us aren't really eligible. One of them is in London. I don't know if we can ship to London.
So he'd only be
In
able to
Dunkirk.
like get gift cards to buy wine for other people, I guess.
Maggie, you're out. You are out.
Can we do stuff for people in other countries?
I mean, we could send them gift cards, but unfortunately, he will only be able to ship wines to a United States address.
Yeah, so you could use it for gifts or something like that.
So it's like Steve versus Stubb. That's the only name you have.
I'll be very slow in answering any trivia question for
You're a
prizes. How about
WTSO customer too. You're more than welcome to win any prizes.
Love it. I love the direction you're going.
All right. Well, why don't we just do this? I'll throw this up real quick and see how it goes, and we'll go from there. We'll figure it out from there. Does anybody know what the oldest winery in Napa, the oldest official winery in Napa is? Answer over in the chat. Type it in. I'm not giving you multiple. Yeah, I don't want to give multiple choice because that might be a little too easy. So you have to come up with it off the top of your head and put it over in the chat.
I know.
No Googling. I can see the reflection in your glasses.
No, I mean, I'm not going to participate.
That's Sonoma.
You can, Shelley. You're more than welcome.
No, that's okay.
They always say they're the oldest.
I'm gonna need to brush my teeth after this one.
Yeah, this has got some tannin on it, and that's with the Merlot.
Was that oldest? Was that oldest in California or Napa?
Napa.
Oh boy.
Speaking of Maggie, I did notice earlier when Mark said, those supple tannins from Merlot, like this, what did he say, silky, you kind of flipped your hair at the same time. So I don't know if you're using a new product or what it was, but he said silky and you flipped your hair. It was
Showered
the
today. It's
perfect
a rare
timing.
occasion.
It was the perfect timing, by the way.
We make a good duo.
It's all coordinated behind the scenes.
Answer.
Buena Vista. That's a good guess.
I went BV, but I was told that was Sonoma.
Yeah, that is Sonoma. Okay, so somebody cheated. All right, well, we got the answers. Yeah, it's Charles Krug. So Krug is Krug is Napa. Buena Vista is Sonoma. They're only apart from each other in a few years. Buena Vista was this crazy Hungarian American guy named Agoston Horaszty, who has this really kind of like storied. Well, nobody knows what happened to him. The guy disappeared. He went away, I think, to Honduras or like Central America and never came back again. But he was sort of a pioneer from Hungary who moved here, and he had a town in Wisconsin called Horaszty Town at one point in time. And then his doctors told him to move to either Florida or to California to get fresh air because he had pneumonia, I think, or he was suffering from some kind of lung disease. Then he moved to California. He was in San Francisco for a while, and he was working for the American government, but he was fired from his job because he embezzled like $150,000 in gold or something like that at that point. So he moved further north and was in the wine industry at that point and still working with the government. So he got an appointment from them to go over to Europe at the time and to get something like 100,000 different clippings of grapes. So he's considered to be the grandfather of wine in California. And they think that he's the one who brought Cabernet Sauvignon to California for the first time. But Charles Krug was the first official one in Napa Valley, and that was in 1861, I believe. Maybe Shelley can shed some more light on that. You know some of the history, I'm sure.
I don't. I just.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. No, okay.
I mean,
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I mean, many of them have changed hands, but Charles Krug was still in, the Mondavi family. Pope Valley Winery of back up near where Calla Lily, they've been around a long, long time.
That used
I
to be
wanna s-
Zinfandel country at one point in time, correct?
Could have been.
Yeah, a long time ago.
It's hard to get a lot of information when you look at the history of Pope Valley because it was more known as farmland for, cattle, horses, all the things, and then later for quicksilver for
Mhm.
mining. And there was a resort that was built there back in I think in the 20s when everybody used to travel, I'm guessing by horse and buggy to party. And they've it's been sold a few times and they keep trying to resurrect it, but it's just so hard to get to. So I don't know.
Well, the whole area has a very interesting history, including Augustin veracity and the story of wine in California. Some of you may know this, but if you don't, the first people who planted grapes in California were actually Spanish missionaries. So Spain, being the seafaring nation that it was, and conquistadors and all that, they found their way down to Peru in South America, and they wanted to convert most of the people, the savages that they met in South America, and they set up missionaries in Peru and traveled through Central America in the 16 and the 1700s and found their way to California, to Baja Peninsula by the 1800s and set up a lot of missionaries there too. So they brought this red grape from South America. Well, actually, it was a Spanish grape, but it was called País, which is in Spanish, if you know Spanish, that means country. So the País grape came from South America and then through Central America into Southern California. And that was the first grape that was planted by Spanish missionaries, mostly for sacramental wine. So they were the ones who were originally responsible for setting up most of the California wine industry in Sonoma and Napa, as we know it too. And there's still a lot of missions in that region too, till this day, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I know they also were planting, I think, the mission grape and making sacramental wines from that.
Yes, correct.
Angelica.
I left that part. Thank you for reminding me. I left that part out of the story. So in South America, it was called País, but when by the time it made its way to California, it was called the Mission grape. But it was the same grape. But yes, you're correct.
And they're like trees.
Yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did a wine tasting last week for Brunello di Montalcino, and the name escapes me now at this point, but it was very European in the ancient times for winemakers to use a tree as sort of like a guardian or like a master for the grapevines to grow up. So back in the days before trellises, they used to
Right.
actually plant them on the sides of trees and let them climb up into the trees. But I forget there was a term for it in Italian, which was very beautiful. Is it a test? Jason, you may know this. Testuccio, I think it was testuccio, which is Italian for guardian, and they used to call those. they used to call that the guardian tree, and they would grow the vines on that, and they would pick the grapes from that. Yeah, so just going back and kind of wandering around here, ambling around in my mind. Hope you guys don't mind.
So Mark, I do have a question. I know we're probably running out of time soon. For anybody that wants to jump in, if you're entertaining friends and you want to bring them to Napa, what are your favorite wineries to visit?
Ooh. Well, we got one professional in the room here, I think, that could really.
Well, I have my favorites. A lot of it has to do with people I know that work there, the wines that they produce, the experience that they offer. I mean, obviously there's tons of choices. I think Chateau Montelena up in Calistoga is a beautiful place to see. The facility is wonderful. It's got a lot of history to it. They've consistently produced excellent wines. Charles Krug has impressed me lately. You know, they did a big remodel on it a few years ago and really have stepped up their game. So if you want, you know, a larger experience, are you looking for a tour? Or are you just looking, are you looking for food and wine pairings? Davis Estate up near Calistoga has some,
Mm.
Mike Davis, who owns that wonderful winery. They're doing some really nice things. You know, old school, of course, Beaulieu Vineyards, BV. Love it.
Yeah, Stag's Leap. Do they do private tours or?
Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, I believe, does.
Yeah.
I know they do. You know, since COVID, everybody's kind of changed what their offerings are, so it's hard to know. If you want to get into, if you're looking for, say, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir versus Cabernet in Carneros, there's some really nice places to visit. Cuvée San is one, which has been around for a while. They just did a big remodel there. They have a nice experience.
Robledo's. We've covered some Robledo stuff in the past, and that's in Los Carneros. And I know Arturo Robledo picks and grows for a lot of people in that region as well too.
As do the
Which
Touchets.
has the most beautiful view?
Pardon
Yes.
me?
Which winery has the most beautiful view?
Oh,
Well, I mean, Sterling has that. I mean,
Ooh.
people may. Yeah, I know the people may not have a favorable opinion of the wines, but they have, you know,
well,
cable
they
cars.
used to. They were affected by the fire, and
Yeah.
so they had a big fire on their property. So there is no tram or anything else. They're working on rebuilding it, but yeah, they were hit pretty hard, as were a lot
But
of.
as far as views are concerned, they have sort of like a cable car that goes up to the mountain, and you get a view from the
Up on
top.
Hell Mountain, there's a little winery called Amazetta. They produce excellent wines and they have really beautiful views. Antica, which is up on Atlas Peak, which is owned by the Antonori family. They have great views, great wines. Love that.
What did we do
Atlas
from?
Peak is one of my favorite AVAs. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, what did we
Is
do
it-
from Atlas Peak? Was that Clouds Rest?
That was Raymond.
That was Raymond.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That was
so
a horizontal, I believe.
yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
So Atlas Peak is the highest elevation in Napa, from what I understand. It's like 2,400 feet above sea level. I think that is the highest peak in Napa. But I digress. So is there anything else, Shelley, that you would like to add? I mean, no, I don't want to keep everybody. We're going about an hour here.
Okay. So first of all, Steve, being in Marin, if you want to come up, or if you want some suggestions of places to go and take people, jot my phone number down, and you can always send me a text or give me a call. It's 707-888-6302. And that applies to any of you. If you ever need anything, that's always the best way to catch me. And Maggie, thank you for putting this all together. Mark, appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for joining us, because it really kind of helped.
Jason, have good
fill in.
time in London. And Ed, now I know who to go to when I need to get some info. I've been a customer of WTSO for many years, and I've gotten some Brunellos and some Burgundies, and every day it's damn that app. All I can say is, I gotta keep my thumb off of it.
Have you seen our new premium wine club?
I saw. Don't need to do that right now.
You can join me and Mark every month for a virtual wine tasting.
That's right. We essentially
But
do
I
this.
do recommend it to others.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
And we appreciate what you do for us. So.
Cool. Well, we didn't get a chance to give any gifts or anything away tonight, just based on the dynamics here.
I sent the cheater a gift card. It's fine.
I said, yeah, it goes to Steve.
Okay, next time. I'm sure we'll have many happy hours in the future, but we just wanted to celebrate our 16th anniversary with you guys. So I'm so glad we have like a small intimate group. This is recorded, so people will be able to join us later and get to experience everything that we just did together. So
Thank you, Maggie.
You guys, are we forgetting anything here? I know there were a few bottles of this wine left for anybody who wants to grab it. How
There's
many?
4
Wow,
left in
4.
inventory. I don't know if anyone jumped on them. I'll share the link
That was
again in the
fast.
chat.
That was
That's-
fast.
Before
Beautiful.
Ed goes ahead. I'm gonna keep this bottle. My brother is a glass blower. I'm gonna see if he can maybe cut off the top here and make like a vase with it. I just think it's so stunning. I don't want to throw it away.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottle itself weighs about 10 pounds or so. It's
Now that it's empty, I'm realizing how heavy it is.
yeah, a little heavy. a little
Literally
heavy.
empty.
yeah. Well, when
Um,
you're investing that much in your wine, I guess it makes sense to want to put it in the packaging of that caliber and that quality. Can't be cheap to ship that. I know in this day and age, especially with all the logistics problems that
Yeah.
we're having.
Mhm.
I lost that argument. But if
Yeah,
you
well-
want to
Thank you.
read, if you want more information on our winery, CallaLilyWines.com, and they'll tell you a little more stories about Carrie, our winemaker, and the owners and the property. And I mean, we're authentic. We got it all there, and I'm proud to represent them.
Yeah, we love that. You're such a member favorite. We're so grateful that you were able to come this evening, and
That's nice to hear. I'll share that with everyone. So,
definitely. I did want to announce we do have our premium Napa Cab event returning this Tuesday. Calla Lily Ultimate Red will be featured within that special collection of Napa Red. So
that's a really good wine too.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have like I said, the entire WTSO inventory at my fingertips. I have to restrain, but that's definitely on like the top of my list.
And just to let you know, Shelley, that's what I'm drinking tonight, the Ultimate Red 2017.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hope you're enjoying it.
Well,
I am.
Shelley, thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank you very
welcome.
much. And
Thanks,
please,
Shelley.
thank you. Thank Carrie and Kelly too for the wine, for the awesome wine.
I will, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
glad
give
you could
them our
join us
best.
tonight.
We'll get Carrie on some other time in the future. if you
That would be
invite us.
wonderful. Yeah, maybe around the holidays. That would be really fun.
Yeah, let's do this again. It's been fun. It's nice chill Tuesday night. Good way to spend the early week night. And of course, Maggie, thanks for the support. Steve and Stubbs, thanks for joining us tonight. Ed, thank you for the support too.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Probably
Thank
see
you.
you on October 20th, right? October
Yeah,
20th.
Bordeaux.
We'll see you soon.
Oh, Steve's in there. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll see you then. We're going to be
Mhm.
drinking
You
some
missed the
great
Brunel. It
Bordeaux.
was really fun.
Awesome. And we get to
All right,
drink
thank
2
you all.
bottles.
Too.
All right.
Jason, thank you for joining us all the way from across the ocean too. Really
Oh,
appreciate it.
literally, I'm glad I saw like your last minute, like, hey, come join us. I'm doing this again. I'd seen it, I think, before you promoted it, and I was like, oh, let me jump on. I'm still awake, but why not?
It's
Amazing.
gotta be late for you.
Yeah.
It's so
Oh.
late. I lived
What
in
time
London
is
for a
it?
long time. This is such a
No, it's early now. I don't prefer to think of it as late. I prefer to think of it as
Yeah,
early.
next day.
Well, you know what you
All
got to
right,
do now,
guys.
man.
cheers.
What's up?
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you. Cheers.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Cheers.
you
Good night.
so much.